here today with my July wrap-up. Actually, on the last day of the month. When has that ever happened? The answer is never. It has never happened. Never in the history of my channel. So we're going to talk about the one that I DNF'd before we go any further because it's making me incredibly sad and I don't want to think about it anymore. Okay? Yes. The book that I DNF'd was A Caribbean Mystery by Agatha Christie. It is the 10th of 15, I think, Miss Marples, and I was really looking forward to this one, which makes me doubly sad. When I came to this one, I thought, ooh, maybe this one will break the trend of when Agatha Christie takes her characters out of their immediate environment and sends them elsewhere to solve murders. She generally does it very badly. I.e. in The Big Four, where Poirot ended up being a CIA spy, secret-toting person, and it was terrible. And I'm not talking here about the big classics like Death on the Nile or Murder on the Orient Express or Murder in Mesopotamia. All of those are very good because they are Poirot sightseeing essentially and going on holiday himself and being drawn into all of these mysteries, which was why I thought that this one would be pretty good. In this one, Miss Marple goes on a Caribbean cruise courtesy of her author nephew Raymond West, who likes to look after his ageing auntie, Granny. And I was looking forward to Miss Marple experiencing her first holiday abroad and all the strange things that she was going to find there and maybe stumbling over a mystery while they were stuck on the cruise ship. That was not what this was. What this was Miss Marple going to a British holiday resort filled with British people who had enough money to do cruising every year and who were generally extremely obnoxious, and there was a foreign maid who was out for the money again, and there was a death amongst a very predictable person in a very predictable group. Again, I picked at this one all month, and then today I popped the audiobook back on and I thought I will give it one last try, and I gave it one last try and I DNF'd it. Now I don't know in exactly what order I finished the rest of the books in this haul, so I'm just going to carry on. This is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, and I absolutely love Gillian Flynn. She is now one of my favourite authors ever. Can you hear that rain? My dog has just come running to me because there's thunder and lightning and he doesn't like it. Come here. It's okay. It's alright. It's okay. It's just thunder. It's fine. That is some extreme weather. We are just going to carry on and hope that the power does not go out. Back to the book. This one is about Camille Preaker, who is a Chicago journalist. She is trying to break into the crime beat up there without too much success, but her editor really believes that she has a good story in her, and so when a little girl is murdered in her hometown, he sends her back hoping that her internal connections to the town will help her to crack the case. She goes there and unfortunately ends up staying with her mother, her little sister and her stepfather in an extremely toxic family environment. Her mother has suffered the loss of a child and she kind of wishes that that child had been Camille and not her big sister, and that has tainted their relationship ever since. And so in the midst of looking into this horrible murder, Camille is kind of forced to relive her childhood with her dead sister and get to know her new sibling who she hasn't really seen very much, and Amma is not the nicest person in the world. A few things happen in this one that I would have preferred not to happen, and so stopped me from rating it as highly as I really could have. Specifically, there was a relationship between Camille and one of the police detectives that I could really have done without. I'm kind of sick of seeing that trope in detective fiction right now, where somebody gets involved with a detective from the investigation and it all kind of, it goes a little bit south and there's this big secrecy thing going on, and I'm bored of it now. I don't want to see it anymore. So seeing it here was a bit like, it gave me the creepy feels that all of the Gillian Flynn books do. It really made me feel quite dirty for reading the things that I was reading, but in a way where I was like, I really understand these people. It kind of feels like an inevitable rolling down the hill of pain and drama, and you know that there's just no stopping where you're going, and for that reason I really enjoy these books. Would recommend. And I'm not going to talk too much about the next book that I finished because it's Harry Potter. It's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Now, this one is generally the one that I like least in the entire series. I must admit it is not my favourite. However, I have to say that this was probably my favourite reread of this one. And I don't really know why. I don't know what clicked or why it made me feel so jovial, but it really lifted me up this month. And the next book that I read is one that I have been trying to reread literally for the last 5 years, and I am so pleased that I have finally picked it up and finished it. This is Pawn of Prophecy, which is book 1 of the Bulgariad, and it is written by David Eddings. This is a very old school fantasy series. It was written in the late 70s, published in the mid 80s, and it carried on for quite a few years. There's 5 books in this series, and then there is a follow-up to this series called The Malorian, which is another 5 books. This was a series which I read very early on in my teens. Very early on in my teens. In fact, it was my first fantasy series. This changed my entire reading journey. I then only wanted to read fantasy exclusively. So the plot of this book is essentially that Garion is kind of a kitchen hand on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and his Aunt Paul, who runs that kitchen, one day gets a visit from an old storyteller who literally goes around farms and places like that in the district and tells stories for his supper. One day Mr. Wolf turns up and tells as Aunt Paul that they have to leave. They have to leave immediately. And so Garion is then running in the middle of the night with his Aunt Paul, this strange storyteller guy, and Durnick the Smith, having absolutely no idea what the hell is going on. And it isn't until they run into the middle of the woods and meet up with 2 rather colourful companions that Garion realises that maybe his aunt isn't exactly who he thought she was, and actually maybe Mr. Wolf is kind of related to his aunt in that he's maybe his grandfather. And maybe the 2 of them can do things that he didn't realise they could do. But I think you should all read this. It would make me happy. And it would make you happy. They're great. They're really great. And yes, this is the original horrible 80s covers, but they've released them in new covers now, so you know, you can have ones that'll look fine on your shelf and you won't have to hide away like this one. And now on to the final book that I read this month, and I didn't intend to pick this book up. I didn't intend to drop everything else and solely read it for the last week of the month. I did not intend to become as completely consumed by it as I was, but that's what ended up happening. And if you follow me on any kind of social media anywhere that isn't my channel, then you will probably already know what I'm about to hold up, and that is My Sister Millie by Gemma Dowler. This is a new release. It just came out this month. Gemma Dowler is of course the sister of Amanda, or Millie Dowler, who was a school child, a teenager just, who was kidnapped from within 10 minutes of her home and was unfortunately tortured, murdered and left without a proper burial or any kind of anything in woods not that far away from her house. And it took several years for her family to find out what happened in Millie's last hours, and also to find her body, and it was harrowing. This was a harrowing read, but I am so incredibly glad that I read it. So sometimes when I read a memoir or a true crime book like this, it is about a case which I am vaguely aware of, or which I heard, you know, bits and pieces about while it was on TV, But this book talks about a crime that I was acutely aware of. It happened in 2002 and it has never really left the media since then. And it has been such a clusterfuck, for want of a better and more PC term. These poor people have been dragged through a court system which did nothing to support them, had so many contradictory things told to them by the police, by Surrey Police, and then had to go through the hacking scandal because Millie's phone was one of the phones which was hacked by the News of the World, and so her poor parents then, after everything, had to go and give information to the Leveson inquiry about the News of the World hacking, you know, other celebrity phones, and they hacked some of the royal family's phones, and, you know, just other despicable things. So I already felt quite close to the memory of Millie, but it was very much the memory that the media had given me. It was the snapshots of Millie dancing around her ironing board, and, you know, the various very famous pictures which have been released of her. It was not the memory that Gemma wanted to portray in this book, and this is why this book is so hard hitting for me, is because Gemma's entire manifesto about this book is to introduce you to a Millie that you didn't know, to a Millie that they kept private up until now, because she wasn't just a murder victim. And when Levi Belfield killed her, he didn't just take away a sister and a daughter. He also took away this massively vivacious personality who was involved in so many different things. As has been the case the last couple of months, I have also read a lot of things which I haven't finished in the month, and so can't really include in my wrap up. Of course, there is the DNF of a Caribbean Mystery, which I was quite far through. There's also Born with Teeth by Kate Mulgrew, which I'm listening to an audiobook, which I've had to take a break from because it was also gut punching me. God, this seems to be a theme with my books recently. Why am I so thin-skinned? And I started The Lion Game by Ruth Ware, but because I was in my book dating phase and I couldn't concentrate on things, I didn't want to keep reading it because I didn't want to ruin the experience of it, so I also need to pick that back up soon. But my TBR for August is fairly packed, so we'll see what I can fit into that. And on that cheery note, what did you guys read this month? Did you have a better reading month than me? I mean, I felt like I was reading for the whole month, like really reading, and I don't know where it went. Bye guys!